Hey guys, so we are going to pick up where we left off at the end of class today. I know I was moving pretty quickly to try to squeeze some stuff in, but we actually left off here. We were talking about the fact that there are two different types of fertility rates. The first one being this replacement level fertility rate, which is the average number of children a couple must bear. And I was saying that the replacement level fertility rate, even though you would think that it is 2, so everyone could replace themselves, is actually 2.1 because some children don't reach their reproductive years. And we were talking about the idea of population momentum, and that if we reach the global replacement level fertility rate tomorrow, our population would actually continue to grow for quite some time because of all those women who are, or we could say potential mothers who are under the age of 15 who will be entering their reproductive years. So the other type of fertility rate, the second type, is the total fertility rate, which you see here is often shown as TFR. And this is the average number of children born to women of a childbearing age. So between 1955 and 2017, the total fertility rate dropped globally from 5.0 to 2.5, right? So this is great, huge strides. But to actually halt population growth, the total fertility rate would have to drop and stay at the replacement level of 2.1. Just a statistic that's useful to know is that Africa has a total fertility rate of 4.6, and their population is growing twice as fast as any other continent. This can kind of help you understand that even though the total fertility rate has dropped globally, we're still really far way off from being able to actually really control population growth because of places like Africa where fertility rates are so high. Okay, so here we're looking at the total fertility rates for the United States between 1917 and you can see here it ends in the year 2015. So this is just showing, right, some declines and increases in the fertility rates. So on average, right, our fertility rate has dropped over time. And actually, we are below the replacement level fertility rate right now. Let's skip here. Okay. This slide is just talking about the way that population change is predicted. So right now, it's estimated that by the year 2050, the population will be somewhere between 7.8 and 10 billion people. Okay, so that's a difference of 3 billion people, which is a huge difference, right? So there's different factors that influence these estimates. So the first one listed here is the reliability of current population estimates. Right, we don't necessarily know every single individual that's living on the planet or every single person that's died at a given time. So sometimes our population estimates aren't really actually exactly what they should be. Secondly, the assumptions about trends in fertility. So we can talk about what we might predict will happen with fertility rates worldwide, but again, these are just assumptions. Right, and then the third here it says is the different organizations who estimate populations use different methods and data. So if we go to our next slide here, you can see that these are different estimates of population going to the year 2050. So these are from the UN, the US Census Bureau, and something called the IIASA, which honestly I don't know what that is, but you can see that they're all different. And even the green here, the yellowish color, and the red here, these are all from the UN. So this is showing an estimation of a low fertility rate, right? Population projection, the medium fertility rate, and a high fertility rate. So that's to account for the fact that we don't really know what fertility rates might be in the future. So one of the case studies that your book talks about in this chapter is the United States population. And you can see here, and we've talked about that the US population is the third largest in the world, following behind China and India. And here you can see that it says there's a drop in the total fertility rates in the United States. Previously, we've had a total fertility rate of 3.7 children per woman, and that currently the total fertility rate, at least as of 2017, was 1.8, so below that replacement level. The highest fertility rates that we've seen, so like that 3.7, were between the years of 1946 and 1964. This time is referred to as the baby boom, and I'm sure y'all have heard of this. This was a period after World War II where people were having a lot of babies. So this is for different reasons. A lot of people delayed getting married until after the war. So when people were coming home, they were starting families. And also it was just like sort of this ideal to have this big family in the United States during that time. It's estimated that 79 million people were added to the United States population during the years following World War II up to the mid-1960s. And then the last thing here that your book talks about in talking about our population growth is that we don't just have population growth in the United States because of births, but we also have a large increase in our population due to immigration into the country. So about 3 million people were added to the United States population in 2016. 2.2 million were due to babies being born, and the rest was due to legal immigration and refugees coming into the country. So your book goes into a lot of detail on this, but for this lecture, I don't want to do that. But it's just something important to note. And altogether for population growth due to births, and then also due to immigration, if trends continue to go the way that they have been, the U.S. population is projected to increase by 72 million people by the year 2050. So a pretty big increase in not that much time. Oops, let's go back here. Okay, we don't need to focus on this slide. This is just looking at immigration and changes in immigration over time. Again, I don't think it's important for you for your exam in May to really know exactly what's going on with immigration. I think it's just important that you understand that population changes also rely on migration, so immigration and emigration out of countries. Okay, this chart right here is just showing you major changes that took place in the United States in the 20th century, so between 1900 and 2000. And it's just here to make you think about like what of these changes really had the biggest impact on the ecological footprint of the United States. So you can see that most notably, right, here you can see homes with flush toilets from 1900 went from 10% to 98% in the year 2000. Homes with electricity, 2% to 99%, right? So we didn't know that electricity use and water use, right? That really puts a strain on our natural resources. I also think it's interesting to note here people living in suburbs increase drastically, right? 10% to 52% in the year 2000. Also, let's look at women working outside the home, right? 8% to 81%. And this is just to talk about the idea of women, educating women and empowering them. And this could really have, could contribute a lot to the fact that total fertility rates in the United States have dropped in the last century. Okay, so factors that affect birth and fertility rates, right? So there's 8 factors that we are going to talk about. The first one is the importance of children as part of the workforce. And so in many less developed countries, children are helping to haul water, to gather wood, to grow food and find food. And we've talked about this before when we talked about the differences between less developed and highly developed countries. The second important factor affecting birth and fertility rates globally is the cost of raising and educating children. So in more developed countries, it costs more to raise children, and so birth and fertility rates are lower, right? And so the reason that it costs more to raise them is because they don't actually enter the workforce until they're much older. And just so you know, the average cost of raising a child in the United States, born in 2016 to the age of 18, is $245,000. So say thank you to your parents. Okay, the third factor affecting birth and fertility rates is the availability of pension systems. Right, so pensions are things that people get when they retire. After they've put in years of working somewhere, they might qualify for a pension to help them in their retirement years. Pensions reduce the need to have children, right? So you don't need to have so many children because it used to be that you had a lot of children because a lot of them died at an early age, and you needed kids to help support you in your old age, right? So pensions reduce the need to have children to replace those that died and then to support parents in their old age. Okay, fourth factor is urbanization. So people living in urban areas have better access to family planning services and tend to have fewer children. Okay, fifth here is the educational and employment opportunities available for women, right? So total fertility rates are lower when women are educated and when they are employed outside the home. Okay, sixth factor is the average age at marriage, or you could think of this as the age at which a woman has her first child. Women usually have fewer children if they are married at 25 or older versus younger than 25. Okay, and then the seventh factor here is the availability of reliable birth control methods. So allowing women to control the number of children and the spacing of the children that they have tends to reduce the amount of children that they have in their lifetime. Eighth here is religious beliefs, traditions, and cultural norms. Generally, when we talk about this, it has to do with high birth and fertility rates. In some countries, the cultural norms or religious beliefs are to have large families. All right. Let's see. I think my slides are in a little bit different order than yours. Skip this. Okay, factors that affect death rates. Okay, so over the past 100 years, there have been declining death rates, and this has largely contributed to world population growth, right? So not just that women are having more babies, because actually women are having a lot less babies overall, but death rates have decreased. So there's a couple of reasons why, and these are useful indicators of health of people in a country. So the first useful indicator is life expectancy. So life expectancy is a great indicator of overall health, right? So from 1955 to 2017, the global life expectancy went from 48 years old to 72 years. The most important factor when you're thinking about life expectancy is poverty. Poverty reduces the average lifespan by 7 to 10 years. Another important indicator of overall health of a population is the infant mortality rate. So here it says the number of babies out of every 1,000 who die before their first birthday. The infant mortality rate can be a great indicator of the level of nutrition and health care in a society or in a country. Right, so this is just showing you that infant mortality rates have declined in both highly developed and less developed countries globally in the last several decades. Okay, so as we've talked about before, when you're thinking about population changes, you can't just think about births and deaths. You must also think about migration. So we were just talking about how the United States population has grown a lot and is projected to grow a lot, but that's not just due to babies being born. It's also due to a lot of immigration into our country. So migration encompasses both immigration and emigration. And this slide is just talking about different reasons for migration. Why do people move in and out of areas? And I don't think we really need to talk about those reasons. But one thing that I do want to point out is this last thing, this environmental refugees. Already people are moving from their homes because of environmental problems. So this could be things like climate change related issues. So sea level rise is a big one. There are people who are having to leave islands because of sea level rise. Water shortages is another reason people are becoming environmental refugees. Food shortages as well. And soil erosion is another reason that people could be considered an environmental refugee. So we're actually going to stop here. Tomorrow in class, we will talk about age structure and interpreting age structure diagrams and how to make them. So I hope this helped. I know you prefer us to talk about this in class, but sometimes we just have to do it. So tomorrow in class, please let me know if you have any questions about any of this material, and we will be moving on. Have a great night.